Welcome back. We are going to talk about fibers that is found in whole grains. So everybody, have you been to a few of our...
This is my first.
Oh, that's good that you are here. So let me run quickly. We are doing this Best Way program, originally made by Dr. I always forget his name, Adams. He is an internist and a master's in public health. He used this, and it has been for over 50 years in different countries, not just in the US. The 4 principles of this one to help people lose weight and also control chronic diseases is talking about nutrition and exercise, and then behavior modifications, trying to choose the right thing every day and every decision that we make. And then, to me, the most powerful part or principle is spiritual strength, developing spiritual strength. So, because we cannot do anything without God in us and through us, right? And then on the second week, we found out that exercise is very beneficial, not just for maintaining a healthy weight, but it actually up to more than 50% reduction in cardiovascular heart attack or stroke. Imagine that, just exercise. And on the third week, we talk about good fats. So there are good fats are typically found in plants. Avocado, flax seeds, chia seeds, nuts. They're really good source of good fat that we need to incorporate almost daily. And the studies that we have seen, people who eat nuts 5 or more times a week, they have less stroke and heart attack and normal in weight also. And the 4th week, we'll talk about carbohydrates. We found out that there are also good carbs, which we know is the original carbohydrates or plants that God made, versus the processed refined carbohydrates, which is the refined sugar, refined flour, white flour, things like that. The most important thing, carbs is the source of our number 1 fuel of the body, which is glucose, okay, from starch. And then on the 5th week, we talk about protein. We learned that every food that God made, plant foods that God made, has protein. And there are certain food groups that's very high in protein that is good for us, like the beans, the nuts and the seeds, and the avocado. And then on the 6th week, we talk about vegetables, how they are high in fibers, nutrients, phytonutrients, vitamins, and minerals. And then last week, we talk about fruits, a really good source for our dessert. Since God made sweet taste buds in our tongue, if it wasn't meant for us to eat sweets, I think he would not have included sweet taste buds, right? But he made the provision for our sweet tooth by giving us sweet fruits. But caution, if you do have diabetes, or your diabetes is not yet well controlled and you have excess body weight, I said that it's not good for you to just eat fruit in one setting. It should be combined with something like nuts and seeds, because it has protein and fat that can stabilize the release of the sugar from the fruit. Or mixing it with vegetable stick, like a carrot stick, a celery stick, a cucumber. So try not to eat just the fruit by itself, because if it is by itself, it will release sugar fast into the system. And today we're going to talk about whole grains. Grains are the main diet of the whole world. It's like foundational food. So in the Far East, like Japan and Philippines, rice is the most staple food, right? And sometimes millet. Some very rare, but mostly rice. In the Middle East, barley is the foundational food. In Europe, it's wheat that's made into bread and pasta, pizza, right? And in the Americas, corn is the king, with quinoa, and amaranth also. Whole grains are the principal food of humanity for thousands of years. Why? Because they are the source of our fuel for the body, which is glucose. But the good thing about the whole grains, they still contain the fibers and the vitamins that help us function better. So whole grains are good for us as an excellent nutrition because it has complex carbohydrate. So when it's not refined, they also have significant amount of protein, but maybe low in the amino acid lysine, but which is high in other plant foods. And definitely they are low fat, so we don't have to worry about cholesterol when we eat them. Okay? And most especially, they are high in fibers. And we will learn later that fibers actually play a big, important role in preventing most chronic diseases, including obesity and diabetes. And they are high in vitamins and low in salt, which can contribute to high blood pressure. So let's talk about the whole grain. Typically, they are composed of three parts, three basic components. The bran, which is the outer layer, is where the fibers of the whole grain is, and most of the vitamins and minerals. Then the second part is the endosperm. 83% of the whole kernel is endosperm, where your starch is, okay? And then this germ is the one that sprouts to become a new kernel or wheat, right? They are high in protein and vitamins. So let's take it one by one. The bran occupies 14% of the whole kernel, and it has all these vitamins and significant amount of protein, 19% of the whole kernel. Then the germ, to only 2% of the kernel, but it has also protein and vitamins. Then the endosperm, which is 83%, the inside, is the one that's made into white flour when it's being processed. Okay? So I did not know that it still has 70% protein. But it makes sense because the wheat flour has gluten, which is protein, right? And it has a little bit of the vitamins. So the bran and the germ contains most of the vitamins and minerals and the fibers. So what happened when it is being processed into refined flour, it loses the fibers. That's why when we eat food made of white flour, our blood sugar rises quickly because the fibers are taken out. And about 25 to 30% of the protein in that kernel is lost. Vitamins, which is really found mostly in the bran, the outer covering, and the germ. So there's loss of minerals, only starch is left, and furthermore, in the process of processing, they sometimes use heat and air, further decreases the nutrients in that refined wheat. So when people started eating white flour, bread made of white flour, the vitamin deficiencies were discovered. That's following after vitamin C deficiency was discovered. Then they also discovered when people were starting to eat white flour, refined white flour, vitamin B deficiencies were discovered. So the food industry tried to put back the vitamins that's lost. There are probably 24 to 30% vitamins that are lost, but the industry are only able to at least, most of the time, 4 of the vitamins that are put back. So that's why you see enriched wheat flour. So that's why it's not as good as when it is whole wheat flour. But sometimes they say in the label of the bread whole wheat flour, but when you look at the ingredients in the back, it actually states enriched wheat flour. So is there a difference there?
Yeah.
So when it's enriched, it's not actually the whole wheat flour, right? So when it's always convenient to just make bread. It's easy, right, to make from the flour. But if you can find a wheat flour that actually is stone ground, okay, where all of the germ, the bran, and the endosperm is still there, so you can get the benefit of the vitamins, minerals, and the fibers.
We have a pan back here.
My grandbaby, whenever I give her like those Hawaiian rolls, anything with bread, she become constipated. And this lady that I know, a friend of mine, she's like 90 years old. We was talking one day. She said, I never ate white bread. No, she said, I stopped eating white bread. I said, why? She said, it constipates you. Is this true?
Yes, we will find out later that it is because there's not much fiber on it. Okay? And I will talk more about the wheat that is also available now are genetically modified, and why it can cause a lot of stomach issues or GI issues. I will talk a little bit more on it at the end. So, because I'm using the slides from the best way, so I'm going to go through this and then I will put in what I've learned also, and to answer that question. So, some common grains are wheat, as I said. I'll talk more about it later. Barley is a good one. They are very high in fiber, and they can lower cholesterol if a person has high cholesterol, and also help with losing weight. Corn, I did not know that the antioxidants, the vitamins and minerals in corn are actually 2 times more that of an apple.
Well,
So
they said that corn, I heard said that corn has no health, nutritional value in it.
no, it has actually nutrients. Okay? What it does is What we need to be careful though is the genetically modified corn.
Okay.
You know, the cornfield that is made into something with pesticides on it already and genetically modified. But most of the sweet corn are still not modified. So when we want to eat corn, let's try to do the sweet corn. And then, better yet, plant our own corn. Yes, somebody has a Paula.
Like you were saying, so how we differentiate?
Oh, you see, if it's a sweet corn, it says sweet corn. But the regular corn, it just says corn. But sometimes they also have a label that non-GMO corn, okay? If we can do that, I know sometimes it's a little bit expensive, but it's depositing health to your body, okay? Because even if we spend a little bit more, you are going to withdraw health as we age. Most of the time, if we don't be careful when we are younger, most of our money when we are older is taken out more for health issues, right? And typically, even now, as we are already aged, we don't know how long we live, maybe to 100 or 90. But if we don't start changing now, or if we continue what we're doing now, the effect of it is actually like 5, 10, 20 years later. It's not really like tomorrow, right? Because our body is made wonderfully by God that it can withstand the abuse that we give to it, right? Just like God is long-suffering, right? Our body is long-suffering too, but eventually it will get you back, okay? So corn has more antioxidants than an apple. But if you eat the apple and the corn together, then you will have multiplied your antioxidants, right? So oats, you know, we know that it has a good fiber also that can lower cholesterol. Quinoa, oh, this is a grain that has the complete essential amino acids that animal protein have. But remember when we were talking about protein, you don't really need to eat a complete quinoa all the time or a complete whole protein from a specific plant, because we are to eat a variety, and if we do, our body will be able to make its own complete protein out of what we eat. Compared to the complete protein from the animal product, our body becomes lazy. It doesn't know how to make a good one specifically designed for each one of us. You know how we know what we are unique? So therefore, when we eat something, our body is supposed to make a strand of the specific protein that's for me, not for Sister Darlene or for Audie, right? It's specific. That's how our body is supposed to be. But when we eat a protein from animal protein, it doesn't have to do that, okay? So when someone is used to animal protein and then change to plant protein, initially they will feel weak because their body is not used to doing what it's supposed to do. But thank goodness, it will be able to catch up also when you start giving the right food.
Amen.
Rice. Oh, we have this saying in my country, the Philippines, rice is life. Because we eat rice, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks in between, right? But the thing is, we use white rice. Why is white rice not very beneficial? Because typically rice comes into its brown, but then it's processed to make it shiny and white and beautiful, right? So the bran is taken out and the endosperm with it. So it has less fibers, less protein, and all you get is an easier to digest white rice that's not too good for if you have diabetes or obesity, right? So now I buy black rice, red rice, brown rice from Amazon instead of just using the white rice. So I only eat white rice occasionally when there's like a feast or a birthday party. Rye, I did not know that it's the most high in fibers. Rye. And what are the effects of fiber in the colon? You will see in your handout, it's a bit described there. Fibers are really good for the gut. Remember, our gut has 300 trillion bacteria, virus, fungi that lives there. Okay? And it's supposed to be a balance of good and bad bacteria. So, good bacteria thrives in fibers. Okay? And so, if fibers also, imagine it's like a broom that cleans the gut. Okay? So that's why it only makes the food that you eat, if it has a lot of fiber, you're also only absorbing less calories because the fibers are not being digested and not absorbed by the body. The function of the fibers is just for food for the good gut bacteria, and also sweeps the colon or the gut clean. So it will help us with weight loss because if we eat more fibers in our diet, we are not absorbing the calories. So it becomes zero for the fibers. Does that make sense? So if you eat, it's just for example, if you eat white bread, there's no fibers in it, you are absorbing every bit of that white bread. But if it's made out of whole wheat, so you are absorbing only 70% of that whole wheat bread, because the germ and the endosperm, the bran and the germ is about 70% of it, right? So you're not gonna get all the calories from that. And you have the fibers to feed the good gut, to sweep the colon so that bad bacteria will not multiply. And also, it helps with constipation because the fibers make the bowel movements easier. So there are diseases associated with low fiber diet. Constipation and also straining. When you are constipated, you strain, and when you strain, you develop hemorrhoids. And when there's no fibers, you get constipated all the time, and the colon will make pouches. You've heard about diverticulosis? Those are outpouching of the colon lining because of hardened stools. Okay? And those pouches, they can become infected. Bacteria goes in there, seeds that you eat, fibers that is caught into the pouch, and then bacteria grows over it. It becomes diverticulitis. And so the colon is inflamed, and there's a high risk or high chance of rupture. So that's going to be a very bad thing. And also appendicitis, because the constipation makes a lot of bad bacteria grow, and it can overwork the appendix and cause it to be inflamed. And even gallstones, cholecystitis, inflammation, can be caused by low fiber in the diet. And cancer of the colon is really associated with low fiber in the diet, and also associated with high red meat in the diet. And I did not know even breast cancer is associated with low fiber. And all this modern diseases of high cholesterol, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, kidney stones, and obesity. When we have low fiber, whatever we're eating is all the calories is absorbed. Now, this is a study of almost 70,000 women followed for 10 years. Okay? The more fibers they eat, the less heart attacks. Okay? And the more fibers they eat, the less fatal heart attack that leads to death in an instant. And this is about the cancer, colon cancer. Even 5 grams of fibers a day can decrease the risk of cancer. And you know how much the FDA recommended for us to get fibers, to eat fibers? For women, about 25 grams per day. For men, about 30 grams. But look at it. Even if you just eat, there is a benefit. So how much more if you comply to what's recommended? Amen. And thankfully, if a vegetarian diet, mostly vegetarian diet or plant-forward eating, it's so easy to get the recommendations. So this is a study that is followed for 24 years, the risk of type 2 diabetes. So if you eat 20% of what you're eating is fibers, the risk of diabetes is down by 53%. Stroke is down by, if a lot of fiber we eat, it decreases the risk of stroke by over 30%. But if you eat mostly red meat, it increases the risk of stroke, right? Fruit, there is a bit of decrease, but if you total all the fiber that you eat, it has a big impact on the risk of stroke. So types of fibers: soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Let me have my... The insoluble fiber here is the insoluble fiber, mostly from the whole grains. It does not dissolve in water. It adds bulk to the stool, so it's easy to move through the gut. Okay, so for instance, if you have diarrhea, if you want to help that, you can do insoluble fiber to help bulk the stool. Because sometimes with GI problem, it could be bouts of diarrhea or bouts of constipation. Have you heard someone having that? It's what we commonly call irritable bowel syndrome. You know, there are days that you get diarrhea. Best fibers for that is insoluble fibers. So it can help with the diarrhea. Insoluble fiber is from most of the vegetables and beans. It can help with constipation. But do we really need to track this if we eat a variety of foods? The colors of the rainbow? Because most plants, they have a little bit of soluble fiber, maybe more of insoluble, and maybe less of soluble fiber. So if you eat the other plants that are high in soluble fiber and low in insoluble fiber, then eventually your body will just be able to get the balance of it. So you don't really have to keep track. But unless you have chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea, that's when you really need to pay attention of the insoluble fiber or soluble fiber. Does that make sense? But if we eat a balanced food all the time with different plants, we don't have to keep track of it because the body, our own body, will be the one keeping track of it. Isn't that wonderful? You don't have to be counting. All right. fibers in the standard American diet. Mostly of what we're eating, the standard American diet, are a lot of no fibers with the oils, no fiber with added sugars. The fiber is only found in grains and vegetables. But the grains that we are eating are the ones that are refined, so therefore no fiber too. So only fruits and vegetables. But only 11% of the total standard American diet is from fruits and vegetables. So that's why we have a lot of GI issues when we don't pay attention of adding more plants, fruits, beans, nuts, and seeds into our diet. So here you can see there are fruits that are high in fibers. So not all fruits are equal. So that's why grapes has less fibers. When we have diabetes or excess body fat, we want to limit our grapes to about 10 grapes, okay? Apples, bananas. So, but the cherries, look, they have more fibers. Blueberries, oranges, raspberries. And then fibers in dried fruits, since they are dried, so they have more fibers per gram or per cup because the water is taken out, right? So there are more fibers. But we need also to be careful not to eat a whole lot of them if we have diabetes or excess body fat, because they are also high in sugar. So this is what we truly call to be in moderation, right? And then fiber in vegetables. So they are usually high in fiber. These are starch, okay? So they are not so high as collards or broccoli.
What are colors? Greens. Collard green.
I never knew what it was before until I started cooking it, and it's actually very good. And the good thing is it's very cheap.
Yes.
Right? It's very cheap. And I praise God, the foods that are good for us, they are cheap and easily grown. They can multiply. Yes, Paula?
Okay, if not got so much fiber and good, why people in the South, they're always so, have high blood pressure, diabetes, and every time I hear this keep talking about colors, what do they do that it doesn't help them? Because I think they eat colors in every meal.
Yeah, but they eat a lot of.
I'm sorry, I did not get the question.
She said, why does people got so many health problems like high blood pressure and other things that they eat in all these collards?
Oh, you think they're eating all these collards?
Especially here, because every time I hear them talk, they always talk about cooking collards, so.
Why? Very good question, Paula. Because the way here in the South, I discovered, every time they make collards, they have fat on it. They put ham hock, pork.
Smoked turkey.
The thing that when you put that in a lot of oil, it zeroes out the effect.
Nutrition, yeah.
And not to mention, we can eat collards, but if we eat cheeseburgers, hot dogs, and
That's what I
all
said,
that other
meat and
stuff,
all that
it
other stuff,
cancels
it
out
cancels
all
it
the
out.
colors. So a lot of the heart diseases are coming from all those other foods that we eat, not the collards.
Very good point. Because even though they said they eat collards, mostly, it's only about this.
Yes.
And then the cheeseburger, the hot dogs, the fried chicken, the pulled pork. So this cannot cancel out, you know? So it should ideally, I think I gave you before, a plate, half of what we're eating supposed to be non-starchy grains. And proof to that, God made these greens so easily grown, right? Because He meant for us to eat most of it. And then when you go to the grocery stores, look at in the produce section, what colors you mostly see. It's mostly greens. Our God has all the evidence why we need to eat them, right? So, yes, that's why when I tell my patients, oh, I love collards, and try to cook it without the oil, without the fat, and put spices. And you know what the spices can do? It's anti-inflammatory. So put turmeric with a little bit of black pepper, cayenne pepper, ginger, onions, all the good stuff, and you will be surprised. Maybe not on the first try, you might not want to eat it because your taste buds has been hijacked by the fat, right? But if you stick to it for about 1 to 2 weeks, you will learn to love it or like it, okay? And then in beans, so you see the good old beans that's very cheap is a very good source of protein. They're also a good source of fibers. That's why people that has pre-diabetes, they can actually not become diabetic when they eat beans every day. Why? Because of the fibers it contains. So the blood sugar doesn't rise up. It doesn't spike because of the fibers. So our recommendations, every whole plant food has a different type and amount of fibers. Indigestible. Fibers are indigestible, right? The body doesn't absorb it, but it helps with feeding the good bacteria. So it calls prebiotic. There are capsules now called prebiotic. It's expensive. If you just eat your vegetables, then you have your probiotics. So eat your medicine, right? Food as medicine. So a variety of plant foods will provide ideal mixture of the natural prebiotics of your colon. As I've said, the body will be able to thrive more if we give them what it needs. And you know, there is a study that a skinny person and a patient with excess body fat, they get the stool, they study the stool sample, and they have different bacteria on it. And they cross-plant or transplanted the stool of the skinny patient into the patient with excess fat, and then the other way around, in the patient with excess body fat becomes skinny. And the skinny become fat just because of the stool bacteria, okay? So it plays a big role. So when we are used to eating the unhealthy high fat, high sugar diet, we have a different type of stool or gut bacteria that will also dictate you to continue to eat high fat, high sugar, high salt diet, okay? So that's why the gut microbiome can be the one actually dictating what you will eat. So when we change our lifestyle of eating, we got to get the power of God to change, because otherwise it's the gut actually that's dictating us what to eat. Can you imagine that? The bacteria in our gut dictating what you want to eat. So the bad bacteria is thriving with cheeseburgers, fat, fried chicken, and all that. So no wonder you want to eat that, because it's your gut microbiome telling you to do that. But there are studies that are within 2 weeks of changing your diet. So it will show changes in the gut microbiome. So therefore, you will not be craving as much. So in the first 2 weeks, that's the time to fully rely on God, right?
How do they transplant?
The back.
How do they?
Which one?
When you said
You
about
said
that,
you transplant one of the bacteria
The stool will be transplanted
inside the colon?
into the anus.
Really?
There are actually cases of C. diff colitis that is not, doesn't get better in weeks or months. They have used that to get a healthy stool from a healthy patient and transplant it to the patient with C. diff colitis. It's actually a treatment protocol now. Sounds gross?
I never heard that.
Yes, but we can grow and cultivate healthy gut on our own. We might become a donor, right? For those patients that are really having a bad C. diff colitis. So, recommendations: eat more whole grains, whole flour, not enriched, but whole wheat flour, if you must use a flour. Use a variety of whole grains. Eat more high fiber fruits and vegetables, and eat more beans.
more beans.
So that's the end. But I added about the wheat, okay? Yes, Paula.
So what about cassava? Don't see that mentioned. What, is that high fiber or no fiber?
Can you Google it for me? Cassava is not grain, it's a root, it's starch. So that's why it's not,
Okay.
so it's part of, because we are talking about grains here. So it's a root. Cassava is a root. It's a root starch. But let me talk quickly about the whole wheat.
Cassava is a starchy root vegetable, also known as yucca, manioc, or mandioca. It is a vital food source. Always peel and cook it thoroughly because raw cassava contains toxins. It's used in many dishes, including stews, chips, and even flour.
Okay, so let's go back to grain wheat, which is very rampant now all over the world. Even though it started in Europe, now it's all over, even in my country. Why is that? In the 1950s, this is the way wheat grain is, the wheat plant. It's skinny, it grows tall, and before they can harvest the wheat grains, the plant is falling off, right? And it was around that time that there was drought or scarcity of food. So there was a doctor who tried to genetically modify it and make it like this, okay? So there are still, when I use wheat flour, I'd like to use acorn horn because this is the ancient original wheat and it's made into hybridized wheat. What's the impact here? They're making more starch, less fiber, more starch, and it becomes a very complex, hard to digest wheat. That's why it's causing a lot of celiac or gluten sensitivity.
Celiac.
Okay? And if you want to learn, so almost all over the world, it's genetically modified wheat. Why? It's cheaper and it produces a lot of starch. So that's what you want for your grain, to produce a lot of starch for bread, for pasta, for cookies, and everything else, right? But since it's genetically modified, most humans has a hard time digesting the starch of it. That's causing irritable bowel, celiac, gluten sensitivity. And when you have that sensitivity, even if it's not true celiac disease, it can make your gut leaky. So whatever you're eating, especially protein, it can leak into the gut, into the bloodstream, and can actually cause autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. So a lot of that, and obesity, and even diabetes. So if you have tried everything and you're still not losing weight and your diabetes is still not good control, maybe try to get the gluten out of the food that you're eating, even for 6 weeks, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, to get the gut to repair. Even, if you don't have a frank gluten sensitivity. And for more information about this, there's a doctor, William Davis, who wrote about this, how the process of hybridization, how it affects the body. Last week, I also talked about the acronym Sustain Me. It's like the new creation or new start, but Barbara O'Neill added abstain in here. No? Is it? New start? So, with our nutrition to help us, let's also not forget to use sunshine. Okay? It's the free doctor in the sun. It not only makes our bones strong, but it also improves our mood so that we can have a strength to do what is right for our body, right? And if you have problems sleeping, sunshine can also help with regulating your sleep. And use of water, minimum of 8 glasses, ideally half of your weight if you don't have any.
That wasn't true that you don't have to drink that much water.
If you are eating, those people that are not eating a lot of fruits, vegetables, and plants, because plants has water. But if you're eating processed food and meat, that's when you really need to drink half of your body weight. But if you're eating plants mainly, then you only need about 8 glasses. Doesn't it help much, right? And then, trust in God.
Amen.
We cannot do all of this without Him. Abstaining from risky substances, not just tobacco, alcohol, or drugs, but also sugar and caffeine, right? And then inhaling fresh air. So while we're in the sun, ideally we do exercise outside to breathe in fresh air. And then we know that moderation doesn't really apply to everything, right? Moderation is supposed to be applied to whatever good stuff, like moderation in sleep. We cannot oversleep because it's called in the Bible as laziness, right? We cannot overeat nutritious food because it's called in the Bible as gluttony, right? And definitely we cannot have moderation in alcohol because in AAA, zero alcohol, right? Okay. So, that's the end of our lecture or group discussion for today. I will have Pastor William give us the spiritual talk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.